Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's episode of Advanced Bass Fishing, and much appreciated you guys checking out today's episode and coming around the channel a little bit. Guys, today I want to talk about old school bass fishing wisdom, because I'm an old geezer, man. I've been fishing forever. It doesn't seem like it. It just seems like yesterday I just got out of high school, but here we are, over 60 years old. But I want to share with you guys some things that that sort of maybe forgotten things about bass fishing in the high-tech society we live of fishing. Just old school techniques, old school things that work that have stood the test of time, and they always will. So we're going to get into that in today's episode and think it's going to add up to some good fish for y'all. Also, guys, before we get started, just a couple quick housekeeping tips I'd like to remind you of. I wanted to remind everybody, anyone interested in booking an on-the-water lesson with me, you can do that by just going to my Facebook page, Randy Blaukat Professional Angler, and shoot me a private message. And also, guys, we have my Fish the Moment lake map breakdowns up on the Fish the Moment website now. These are lake map breakdowns that I've made for Fish the Moment. It's taken me like 5 years to build these. They're great resources to learn more about a lake you fish a lot that you need to get some new spots on, or a lake you've never been to before. So I'll put that Fish the Moment lake map breakdown link in the description if you guys would like to check that out. Really appreciate that. Okay, guys, let's talk about some old school deals, about things that have stood with me since I've been fishing that you don't hear many people talking about that much. So first of all, a lot of the old school ways of bass fishing has to do with your senses and your awareness on the water. Things that a lot of people are oblivious to now, because as we get more advanced into technology and people rely more on electronic technology and stuff like live scope for their fishing, they lose touch of their natural senses as far as being part of that environment that you're out. One of the things that will help you out a lot in fishing is to be aware of the fact that you need to be aware of everything that's going on around you, because those subtle clues a lot of times can make all the difference in the world. So when you're fishing, pay attention to everything. Pay attention to like water clarity changes, because a lot of times you can be fishing down a bank and then maybe you turn and you go back into a little cove and you have a water clarity change. Or you can be fishing one part of the lake and move up a mile or two up the lake and there's a water clarity change. And sometimes that water clarity change will dictate different type of techniques, but constantly be aware of that. And not only with the water color changes, but pay close attention to like predominant cover that's in a lake and how the cover is laid out. Because let me give you a prime example of, awareness here that a lot of people forget in fishing. One of the last big tournaments I won was down at Beaver Lake in Arkansas several years ago, and I won this tournament flipping flooded bushes. Okay, so in this particular tournament there were thousands of flooded bushes in the lake, just thousands of them, and a lot of people would just go through there and just meticulously and flip everything they see. But one of the things I got noticing, and it became aware to me after I caught 3 or 4 fish, that you would look down a row of trees and there would be thousands of bushes on it, and there would be one specific bush that the fish were living in, and that would be a bush that had there was a lot of the bushes that didn't have any green leaves on them. It was still early in the year, but there would be some bushes that had some green leaves on it, maybe not a lot of green leaves. And the way that the size of the bush, if it had these green leaves, it was a guaranteed fish. So if I could find a bush that had a few green leaves on it and was about as big around as the hood of my truck, there was a fish on it every single time. If the bush was half the size of the hood of my truck and had either not enough or too many green leaves on it, there would never be a fish on it. But when I got to those bushes that had just the right amount of leaves on it and just the right size, there was a good fish in every one of them. Now, this was something that there would be, like every maybe 30 or 40 feet down the bank, I'd come to a bush like this. And being aware of that, and that's how you develop a pattern. Another thing you can be aware of, guys, let's say you're going down a bank, and pay attention to the bank. What's on the bank? Because sometimes if you look at the bank and notice everything that's going on there, like notice if you see any bluegill swimming down the bank, notice the size of the bluegill, Maybe get out and turn over a few rocks and see if there's any crawdads there. Note the color of the crawdads. Note the size of the crawdads. Look and see if you see any shad swimming there. Look and see if you see any bass swimming along there. And then pay attention to the bank itself. Sometimes you can go down like a clay or a mud or gravelly type bank, and there'll be little holes in the bank there. Those are usually crawdad holes where crawdads live in. Sometimes there's a subtle, like some type of a subtle rock transition that you can pay attention to. But every single bit of information that you can assimilate helps you develop and helps you build a pattern with that. So just be aware of that. Another little thing, a little old school tip I'll give you, is that when you hook a bass, pay close attention to where that hook is in the fish's mouth, because based upon where the fish is hooked at, if it's hooked in the upper lip, if it's hooked on the bottom lip, side lip, that will tell you how those fish were positioned in the cover when the fish struck. And so that can give you a clue of what the fish are doing a lot of times. Other things you can do with that is pay attention to the weather patterns and the specific weather and relationship to the bass behavior. A lot of times the level of humidity in the air, a change in barometric pressure, a change in wind direction, a change in light intensity, all that type of stuff will factor into bass being active or inactive and different type of preferences they have. Same thing goes with your lure colors, man. Pay close attention to different, colors of lures that you're using, the subtleties of it, how those lures look in the water in relationship to the water clarity around it. Pay attention to, be aware of the speed of your retrieve, exactly how fast you were reeling that lure when that fish bit, or if it was a stop and go or a straight retrieve, how long the cast was it a 70-foot cast, was it a 30-foot flip, everything. There's so much to digest on the water, and the more that you're aware and the more that you can correlate everything that's going on that is in your senses to the fish that you catch, the more in tune you're going to get with everything. And this is one of the things that a lot of people just seem to have forgotten, is they're oblivious to everything that's going on around them. And one of the things that I have learned about, I studied the Native American Indians for years, and I went to some Native American survival schools. And in order to survive thousands of years ago in the United States here, your awareness had to be just unbelievable, as far as the awareness of your surroundings and what the animals were doing and how the animals were moving and their moods and their personality and their habits. And that allowed the natives to thrive for thousands of years here, without showing any sign whatsoever what they've done. So hold on a second, guys. Elijah's asking. Okay, guys, I'm back. So anyway, by studying these Native American Indians and how in tune they were with the world around them and their environment around them, I've been able to apply that to bass fishing and use that in direct correlation to my fishing. One of the things that will really benefit you a lot in bass fishing is if you become what I call a student of the bass. And if you study everything about them, study their moods and their behaviors and their patterns, the more that you do that, the stronger you become as an angler. Because here's the difference between like old school wisdom in fishing and the modern day wisdom we have. Old school wisdom relies on the fact that you have to understand the bass, and you have to understand where they live and where they move based upon different environmental conditions and how to trigger those fish to strike. And that comes from being aware of nature around you, because nature will give you the clues. And for forever, up until the last 5 years or so, that's how people became good anglers. Most of the best anglers in the world were the most aware anglers. They could pick up on the subtlest little tiny details about what the fish were doing. But now a lot of those skills are atrophying, because when you just are staring at an electronic screen all the time and watching those fish move on an electronic screen, you eliminate all of those wisdom elements that I'm talking about, that was what traditionally was associated with the art form of bass fishing. But one of the things that I have observed, because I've had a chance to fish with some of the greatest anglers in the history of the sport. I've been in the boat with Rick Clunn, Denny Breyer, Roland Martin, Hank Parker, Larry Nixon, just on and on and on, some of the best anglers you'll ever see. And the common thread amongst all those guys, their awareness for their surroundings when they're on the water is on a different level. And that's one of the things that I really want to encourage you guys here in today's video from an old school wisdom perspective is get grounded to that and just try to immerse yourself in that. And just the next time you're on the lake, instead of just getting totally focused and glued on casting and reeling your lure in, be aware of everything, as much as you possibly can that's going on around you. And then that, a lot of times, that'll lead you to your next fish. So anyway, guys, hope it helps out a little bit, and we'll talk later.